Joining me in the studio today is Paul Sculfor. Paul was the original male supermodel. His $1 million face graced the covers of magazines, billboards and international fashion campaigns.
Hi, I'm Paul Sculfor and I'm head judge with Abby Clancy on Britain's Next Top Model.
He regularly walked the catwalk for Armani, Versace, Burberry and Louis Vuitton. What do you think you lost over the years because of your addiction?
I lost a lot of money.
Put a figure on that.
In all, probably about £4 million.
Wow.
Which is painful. So I know I spent £250,000 on drink, right?
Yep.
But it's missing out on business deals from not turning up, not being there and saying the right thing. I went to see my agent. She had a tear in her eye and I was like, what's the matter? She goes, what happened? She goes, your spark's gone. A friend of mine, James, said to me, there's a party in Bel Air tonight. He said, but don't drink and don't do anything, okay? Because there's a lot of important people. A friend of mine come over and he said, should we do a couple of pills? So we took a couple of pills and I drove to this place.
Elliott Wald, addiction specialist. Coming clean with me.
Hello, I'm Elliott Wald, addiction specialist, and welcome to another episode of Coming Clean with me. Joining me in the studio today is Paul Sculfor. Paul was the original male supermodel. His $1 million face graced the covers of magazines, billboards and international fashion campaigns. He regularly walked the catwalk for Armani, Versace, Burberry and Louis Vuitton. Paul served as a judge on Britain's Next Top Model and has hosted countless prestigious fashion awards. Welcome, Paul. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Elliot. Pleasure.
Well, Paul, let's just start right at the beginning. Tell me about your story about growing up and your childhood and your family.
Yeah, so I was brought up in a place called Upminster, which is the end of the line, not in a bad way. It's a little Victorian town, and my father was from Canning Town, and my mother was brought up just by Chigwell, and her parents were from Hackney. So it was a very East End family. And as I say, I was brought up in Upminster, it's a nice place, it's quiet. And so I thought it was pretty much a normal childhood. My dad he was a docker, and he worked 4 shifts, so we didn't see him much.
He's a grafter.
He was a real grafter. And if he wasn't doing that, he was doing extensions and digging footings and stuff. So he was just a worker. And so I was brought up really around my mum and her sister and her friends. My dad's a really good man. He had a incredibly tough upbringing. And he got taken away from his home quite a few times. And the last time was, I think he was 11 or 12. And he got took to a convalescent home where he stayed for 5 years. And he was the only one on the bus leaving Canning Town going, great, I'm getting out of here, basically. And so he doesn't have an East End accent. And in this place, it was, I don't think it was a military convalescent home, but a guy was from the military who ran it, took a liking to my dad. And he taught him how to eat. So they would have meat once a week, they'd have poultry, and they'd eat pretty much mildly cooked vegetables. And he taught him how to train. So my dad was really disciplined, became a bodybuilder back in the 60s.
Wow.
And he was on stage actually with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Wow.
And the only reason I know that is because my mum told me, she showed me he's got loads of gold medals and a couple of silver medals. And I was like, what are these? And they're like, oh, your dad's, but he won't tell you about it.
Really?
Yeah. And he was, I've learned a lot of discipline from my father, but he could get angry. And I understand now as a man, he has a lot of unresolved stuff from his childhood. And in fact, I blame my dad for a lot of stuff, but now looking at myself and in hindsight, he's done incredibly well. And actually he's a good father and looked after me a lot. And my mum was super loving, and we had a very close relationship. She was very ill when she was 35, so I was probably about 9, and she spent a year and a half on and off in the London hospital, which we thought was cancer, but it was neurofibroma. And I won't do my laundry on my dad, but when they used to have rows, I used to be on my mum's side a lot and look after her. and I was very protective over females. And when she was in hospital, I was probably 9, and it completely threw me in life. And then my grandma had just died as well, and my dad's very matter of fact. He's like, "Oh, your nan's dead, by the way." Not in a horrible way, but that's how he saw things.
Black and white.
Yeah. So as a kid, and I was very sensitive. I don't know why, whether I was born that way, but I was very intuitive and very sensitive, but I didn't have the ability to communicate. So I'd ask deep questions. I remember being 4 or 5 and asking, what's infinity? You know, who are we? What's going on? And picture stuff like, who are my parents? How am I with them? You know, it just was a natural thing. But I never got any answers. It was like, oh, you think too much, or oh, you're this, or whatever. So I felt like I'd shut a lot of myself down and just became meat and potatoes, which was very boring for me. And as I got a little older, I mean, there's so much stuff, but as I got a little older, we used to, I trained, my dad's cousins all owned boxing gyms, and so I used to train, and he took me to, it was Lion's Gym down in, so that's my dad's cousin, so he took me down to Tony's gym, and I was 13 at the time, and I just wanted to please my father. He was hard to please, but that's probably because he was too busy and wasn't present, but it was hard to get anything out of him. And I think I just wanted a cuddle off my dad, you know. I got it once when I come out of the Priory 20 years ago. I cuddled him, and he was like that. And I thought, just give me a cuddle.
He's that old school, stock.
Oh, proper old school. And then I realised now that a handshake with him's like a hug for him, you know, and that's fine. I get that. And a little look and a nod. And I understand that's his love, you know. And
can I ask you a question before we get any further?
Please do.
Knowing that having your dad like that, what are you like with your kids?
It's a really good question. I am super affectionate. I always bend down to their level and look them in the eye and ask them, "Are you okay? What's going on?" My eldest she could be on the spectrum, not in a bad way, and she needs to know what's going on next and what we're doing, and she doesn't like loud noises and stuff. So she's my little buddy, so I talk her through everything. Even when she was like a few months old, I explained to her, we're going to change a nappy, this is what we're doing. So I'm not over the top, but I make sure I'm there and I make sure I'm present.
Okay.
Because you can be in the room with your parents and not be present.
Absolutely.
And as a child, you feel like you're not loved because you just want their attention.
Do you think you're like that now because of how your father was to you then?
Yeah. I think the desire to have an intimate relationship with my dad, as in intimacy to me is revealing who you really are and sharing that knowledge with each other. And I didn't have that. And again, he's a great guy. I don't blame him for that. But that definitely had an influence on how I want to communicate, because I felt that I had so much as a person to talk about, to question, but I didn't have the skills to talk or question. I didn't know, you know.
Okay, and then tell me how you got into modelling.
I got scouted 3 times on the King's Road from like 19 onwards.
So they just come up to you? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, so scouting is literally you get people who are paid to give scouts. They go up to a person, they say, "Do you want to be a model?" They'll take them to an agent, and they'll get a commission. And if they're smart, they'll get a commission for like 5 years. And I was boxing at the time. I was getting into a bit of trouble. I was buying and selling cars, doing some construction work, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm not interested. And on the 3rd time, it was a lady who was really lovely, and she said, "Look, can I just take some pictures?" And I was like, "Fine." She took some pictures, took them to an agency called So Damn Tough on the King's Road at the time. They was like, "No, not for us." And then she walked me down to Models 1, where Davina McCall was head booker. And I didn't have great skin at the time. I had a bit of acne on my cheeks. And Davina was like, "Well, let's just see how you go for a couple of months." And then she turned me down. And then I think it was a year or so later, I was in hospital having my appendix out, and my mum gave me a brown envelope and said, "Oh, you've won something." I didn't send off for anything. So I opened it, and it said, you're down to the last 50 people of the face of 92 with Select Model Agency, and here's £200 for a clothes voucher, and you get a vacation, like a holiday after.
Yeah.
So I was in hospital, and I was like, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. I could do a holiday and a new wardrobe. Let's go.
Why not?
Exactly. So at the end of the week, I went up there. It was in at Limelights. You might know Gary Stretch was one of the judges.
Yep.
And I'd met him through the boxing fraternity a couple of times. And I just went up there to see if I could get this holiday. And I ended up winning. Penny Lancaster came third on the girls' side. And it took 2 months of phone calls for me to actually go up there, because I only wanted to have the holiday. And she was crafty, Tandy, the agent. She said, there's nothing for you until you come in the office and work. So that's how it started.
Wow.
Yeah.
And tell me, was there a family history of alcohol or substance abuse or addiction?
So on my father's side, I think I offended a family member a little while ago, but my granddad was a drinker, and he was a gambling man, and
East Ender.
yes, he was quite mysterious actually. He didn't have an East End accent either, but yeah, he was in Canning Town, but my dad told me that he basically bet away a couple of houses. He was really smart, my granddad, and I didn't really know him too well because of the relationship my dad had with him early on. So when I was older, I tried to befriend him. He's quite a curt man, good-looking fella, really really nice guy, but quite mysterious, very funny, great voice, good singer, and he used to do this little trick. Which he never showed me, but he'd give you a calculator and say, give me any numbers, and he'd add them up that quick, like really super quick. So he was a smart fella, but a closed book, and well, just of that generation, I would say. And I tried to get to know him when I was 17, as much as I could, and it was his side that would have had that, if anything.
Yeah.
But my dad, because of his discipline, he definitely had some drinking bouts when my mum was ill. So I know now he was dealing with it in that way. So there was lots of times he was quite a mess. But he's not, I don't believe, an alcoholic at all.
And how old are you when you first started using alcohol and taking drugs? And how did you get into that? What was the reason behind it?
Yeah, so it's a funny one, Elliot. I always swore I'd never drink. Always. And I'd never smoke, and drugs was a no-no. So my dad always said a mantra of, if you're a drug addict, you're weak, they're just rubbish, and but you can have a drink with your friends. And it was, my memories of early stuff with pubs and clubs with my parents was nice. The smell and the sort of feeling as a young kid, because we used to sit there with our coats and we'd go to sleep and then have a drink and a laugh and that's it. But what I noticed as I was getting in my teens were what alcoholism is, and some of my dad's friends who were turning into alcoholics, or the violence around it. That's one thing I still have anxiety about when things kick off, and I can sense, when someone's drinking, they're getting louder, and you can feel their energy change, not in a nice way, in a horrible way. I still have an allergy against that, but it put me off, and I saw more and more of that. And as I went out as a teenager, Gary Oldman made a film called The Firm. I don't know if you know it.
Vaguely.
It's his first film. There's a great scene where they're in a Golf GTI across Blackheath, spinning around across the football fields. Well, where I lived in Upminster, at the back of Upminster, there was a place called Cranham. And then there was Emerson Park and Hornchurch. So the Emerson Park boys were the Hornchurch posse. And then you had the Cranham boys. And the Cranham boys were more old school, and the boys were the money from Emerson Park. So there was a massive rivalry when I was at school. So we'd go to our school in Upminster, we'd go get the bus to the swimming pool, and the windows would come in. And there'd be baseball bats and lots of stuff going on. And some of the boys was in the paper a lot. And I always hung around in between both groups, but I didn't like the drinking and the drug side early on. So my first drink was 15. We went on holiday for the first time to Mallorca, My dad said, just be careful because these boys really drink. And I was like, fine. And so I wanted to partake first night, wanted to belong, didn't want to be sitting on my own, wanted to be one of the lads. Woke up in the morning absolutely, I felt like I'd been poisoned on the floor. I had a towel against the hotel bathroom door. I'd run the bath and let it overflow, and I was just laying in there moaning. I didn't know what a hangover was. I had no idea. I probably did poison myself. And my mum come in and basically said, you just have a hangover, get over it. And I didn't drink for probably a year and a half, 2 years after that.
The pain of that was sufficient to put you off for a period of time.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like being sick as a kid. I hate it. I used to faint a lot and be sick, and I hate that feeling. So it was great. It put me off. But then when I started to drink, there was almost an internal ominous warning that this is quite nice, that this makes you feel stronger, better looking, taller, funny, and makes you feel a bit more relaxed. And I realised that I really was uptight. I had a lot of fear running in my life, and I didn't know it was fear that as a teenager would come out as rage and anger. And there was one day, I remember one day we basically went all the way to midnight drinking and went back to the pub the next day, and I never really sobered up that night. And I thought, wow, okay, I understand what that is now. And I kind of tried to control myself for a long time after that. But I was never a full down drunk because the drugs come into play.
Level you off.
Yeah.
So over what time scale did your consumption and usage increase, and how did the drugs come in?
Yeah, so like I said, I was really against drugs. But the first time I used cocaine was a friend of mine was dealing, and it was a Saturday night. We was around his friend.
What sort of age were you at this point?
I would say I was probably, so I was driving, so I'd probably say 17, 18.
Okay.
And I just had it, I was like, okay, I'll have a little bit, just a little line. And what had happened, that he'd put acid in everyone's drinks about a half hour before.
Right.
Without telling us.
Okay.
Right. So it just burnt my nose a little bit, didn't think anything of it. And I was trying to stay in control. And then obviously it was a purple on.
Right.
Then we was all completely off our heads all night. And I wanted to leave this building. I just drove. I was just driving for hours. That's the first time. So it didn't really have an immediate effect. Some people say they had it and that was it. They was lit up. That wasn't my case. But the second time, I was with a friend of mine.
How long after that event was that?
I'd say that was probably, I'm not sure, probably a year or so.
Okay.
I really was cautious. When it really started to get me, I was modelling then. So it was probably 21,
Okay.
22. That's when everyone was really partying, you know, there was raves.
Because at that point you're moving into your career, you're starting to get seen and noticed, and you're around other people who are using.
The people I was with anyway were using.
Okay.
A lot of people asked me about fashion. Was that the crux of what happened?
Yeah.
And actually, it saved my life because, to be honest, I would have probably just been buying and selling motorbikes, or I'd probably gone into property by then and just been a pub boy and stayed down the pub. And a lot of the guys that was down the pub I went to, some aren't here anymore, and some got in a lot of trouble. So fashion saved my life. And why is because once I got the taste for it, and once I got the opportunity, I really desired to be the best I could be in that business. So I never stayed in one country more than 2 months for about 8 years. So I'd come close to getting into trouble, and then it would fall off, and then fashion seasons would end, and we'd just go and party in between. So,
Oh, I see. So while the season is taking place, you're kind of sober, but when you've got those gaps between it, it's like, yeah,
100%.
I'm a free spirit now.
Yeah. So I'd call it a workaholic, because I would literally, if Paris was dry, I'd go, right, let's go to Milan, let's see what's there. If that was dry, I'd go to Greece, or I'd go to Germany, I'd go to New York. But I wasn't sober way through them. We were drinking, but I was controlling it, I think, would be the word.
Yeah.
And then, after one point, it was just...
At what point did it become no longer controlled?
I would say there was a couple of strong bouts at 24, 25, and then I kind of pulled the reins in.
You're already at this point an internationally recognised model, right?
Yeah, and I was really big at the time.
So through the 90s, how were you able to keep that addiction a secret? Because you were on the face of everything.
Honestly, I read the papers one day, and I saw some of the supermodels coming out of a club at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday, and I thought, how do they do that? How do you do that if you're working? But I was working nearly every day then, so it wouldn't have worked. But as work changed, the days got less, but the jobs got bigger. Okay. So you'd work 1 day a week, so you'd have the rest of the week off. So
you're moving up the ladder of who you're modelling for, and therefore the return of you're being paid, and therefore you can work less modelling shots, but they're a higher quality level. Yeah,
and as a manager, what a manager would do is it's really hard to balance the career. There's 4 places in there. You can be a catalogue model, commercial model, you can be TV commercials, or you can be editorial. They all have different prestige and they all pay different money. And if you can try and get a bit of them all, that's kind of the best way to have a long career.
Okay.
So I was doing lots of catalogue and campaigns, and then it moved more into just campaigns in Catwalk, which campaigns pay a lot of money. So at one point it was working every 2 weeks. So it was going to these parties on a Wednesday and the clubs on a Tuesday.
Did you feel you had to go to the parties to keep up with the level of recognition you had?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's changed now, but yeah, in the 90s and early 2000s, your agent would be telling you, go out tonight, so-and-so's going to be there, make sure you have a good impression, make sure you're seen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really mixed in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being 21 and living in LA myself, and above the gym that I was training in was I can't remember, it was one of the movie companies, and the people come down the gym and train all the time from that movie company, producers, whatever, and they'd always say, oh, you're going to you're English, you should come to that party with us, because it's all about who you connect with, and then there's all coke and everything is everywhere.
Yeah, and then you're in the club.
Yeah,
that's one thing I would say, is that I had very low self-esteem, didn't know it at the time, and I didn't have a fantastic education, so I felt a bit less than, and I just assumed everyone else did.
Right.
For no reason, but I assumed everyone else did. So my ticket in was, well, if you party with people, then if you're the best at partying with people, then you're in.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how it did work for a while.
And what was the pinnacle moment, an event where you instinctively knew you had to stop the drink and drug binges? Because it was a binge for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. It was. I would say there was a couple of warning signs. I was living in New York and Miami, and I'd been on a TV commercial in Vegas with this girl who was really my dealer. And
she's in the commercial with you?
She weren't in the commercial with me, but she was in Vegas at the time.
Oh, I see. Right, okay.
Yeah. No, she had another business, which was more of a front. But I finished the commercial, and she said, I'm in Vegas, do you want to come over? I was like, yeah, sure. Stayed there for 3 days, had a crazy time, flew back home to Miami and was absolutely beaten. And as I was walking down the corridor to my apartment, my neighbour, who was a medium, was like, Paul, are you okay? You don't look yourself? I was like, yeah, I'm okay. She said, would you like a reading? I was like, yes, please. So I went in.
Right.
And actually, she said a couple of things about my mum, which no one would have known. So I was like, okay, I'm invested in this.
Yeah.
And we sat there for hours. But she said to me, I'm reading your aura.
Yeah.
She said, it's kind of shattered. You've been doing drink and drugs, haven't you? And I was like, well, maybe a little bit. And she said, you may want to seek help.
Okay.
And I thought, I ain't that bad. I'm fine. It's okay. I got this licked. And she was right. But what she did say before she left, she goes, I see your name in lights in Hollywood. I think you're going to be a movie star. Literally, within the week, I'd packed my bags. I'd left Miami and went straight to LA. Joined this class, amazing woman called Janet Alhanty, this really, really short, redhead Jewish woman, was amazing, just at Boiled Sweets, but she was a fantastic acting coach, and I really liked her. Worked my arse off for 3 months, graduated into a masterclass, then we had a break, and then I didn't go back.
What happened?
Well, I lived in this really, really cool house. It was a friend of mine initially, and it was a party house. We just partied and partied and partied. And the problem was, which was great at the time, I had a fantastic commercial agent there, and I was getting all the car commercials, and you get paid a fortune for a car commercial.
So you got money coming in,
Yeah.
and it's a party lifestyle.
100%.
You don't have any commitments at that point. There's no family, there's no wife, there's no kids. You can do what you like.
And that's exactly what I did. And I really, really did. And I burnt the candle at both ends. And a lot of my friends that were models, successful models, moved to LA at the same time. So it was like, let's go, you know. So yeah, we did. We partied really hard. There's one story. A friend of mine, James, who's a big agent there, shall I say, and looks after someone who's very successful, said to me, there's a party in Bel Air tonight. He said, but don't drink and don't do anything, okay, because there's a lot of important people there. It's like, okay, yeah, no worries. And I won't mention his name, but a friend of mine come over and he said, should we do a couple of pills? So we took a couple of pills, had a couple of scotches, and I drove to this place, pulled up in the valet, went in, and by the time I'd gone in, obviously I was super high, the pills had come up, and I remember running on the lawn of this 30-bedroom mansion going, I'll change his name, but I went, James, how are you, James? What's going on, James? And I could just see him go, oh my God, what are you doing? You know, so it got a little bit like that. But that lasted 2.5 years. And after that, when I come back to England, that was my point where I was like, I need to see.
Was that psychologically rock bottom? Not career-wise, because your career was flourishing, but addiction-wise, was that rock bottom for you?
Yeah, 100%. Well, you say, well, to be honest, the last year and a half, work was drying up.
Okay.
I went to see my agent, and she used to call me Skinny, and she's like, all right, Skinny, and she looked at me, and she had a tear in her eye, and I was like, what's the matter? She goes, what happened? I said, what happened with what? She said, what happened with you? She goes, your spark's gone. And I felt really angry. I was like, my spark's not gone. If you get me more work, it'll be back. But I didn't realise it's true. I understand now, working with people who have addiction, that it takes the light out of your eyes.
Yeah, the sheen goes.
It goes.
Yeah, it does.
It takes that. It's like the spirit goes. You know, it takes a spirit. Like a spirited young kid, you can see the light and they're like, hey, how you doing? That goes completely.
You know, it's funny saying that, taking the spirit go, but you know the word alcohol?
Yeah.
You know it comes from the Arabic word meaning alcohol, right? Which actually means spirit eater.
That's right.
I mean, how weird is that? Talking about taking your spirit. That's exactly what it is.
And you can see it with people. You can see it with people. And I really believe that when you do work on yourself, clearly like what you've done, that comes back. You know, you can get it back. It comes back.
So you hit rock bottom and you decided to do something about it. So what did you do?
So I woke up, I was in England. I woke up on the floor in my apartment for the last time, and the phone was off the hook. And I picked it up and said hello, and there was a guy on the other end of the phone, and he said, are you okay? And I said, are you okay? And he said, yes, we was talking. I didn't know we was talking. I said, did you phone me? He said, no, you phoned me. I said, who are you? He said, I'm Dave, or whatever, from the drug helpline. And I said, okay. He said, I was telling you my story. And I said, do you need help? I didn't understand what it was, but he was telling me his story to help me. And he suggested that I go to a meeting, a 12-step meeting in Shoreditch on it was a Sunday. So I had a shower, put a nice shirt on and a jacket. I didn't know what to expect. Drove my car, pulled up outside Shoreditch Church. Guy come out with a tracksuit on. All right, how you doing? I said, I'm good. He said, are you here for the meeting? I said, yeah. Come in. Went into this meeting. And there was a church hall, lots of people having tea and coffee, all laughing. And someone said to me, are you a newcomer? And I said, I don't know, I've just got in there. And they all started to clap. Well, I've been on it for 3 days.
Oh.
And I just wanted to die. And someone gave me a tea, and I just thought, I bet they've put something in there. I won't have that. And I left. But what I did do is I phoned a friend of mine who I know he works in the city and he's not anything to do with drugs or alcohol. And I said, I need to see you. And I drove around his house, and as he opened the door, I burst out crying. I was like, I need help. I'm in trouble. And he and I was only having a conversation a few weeks before, saying, it's amazing that you've never done any drugs in your business, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, of course. Because I hid it from everyone.
Of course.
Parents didn't know. No one knew. And it's something for me that being a young athlete and a bright kid was, and I promised myself I'd never go down that road. So when you find yourself at the end of that road, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you want to do about it? And I said, I need to go into treatment. I need to be locked away. I can't do anything. So he drove me to treatment centre. And that was the start of my journey.
That you reached a point where you decided that I want to do something about this. I want help, and I'm going to seek help, which is probably the most important place to get to before doing something about it.
Yeah.
And then you went to rehab. You took a hiatus from your career to focus on yourself. And what did that involve?
The hiatus.
Yeah.
A lot of crying, a lot of shame and guilt and reflection. But what I did, I was around 3 weeks into the treatment centre, and I decided I was going to take my life because I just couldn't comprehend. I'd spent so much money, hadn't really burnt bridges. I just didn't turn up, and I was just ashamed. I couldn't believe I'd got where I'd got, basically. And I decided that I was going to take my life. And in a rehab, in the first few weeks, you're not supposed to get a phone call to the room. And oddly, at that moment, a friend had phoned me and just said, how you doing? And just hearing his voice took me out of this thought process. And then it was really strange. I pictured my mum, my nephews, my sister, sorry. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm here anyway. What am I doing? And I thought, I'm going to give this a go. And from that decision, there's a difference between thinking about something or making a real decision. And I made a fundamental decision at that point that I want to get well. I want to be here. I want to know what is addiction. How have I got where I got? At what point did I miss all the signs or just not take notice of them? So I decided to work on myself from that point. And I signed up for another 28 days. So I was in there for 6 months, including daycare. And then I went to 12-step meetings. And I signed up for a little acting class with this guy, Tom, who's amazing. He's sober. He's a Buddhist monk, did psychiatry as well. And he took me under his wing. And I learned in that acting class, so I studied Meisner technique about emotions, about handling emotions, because all I had was 0 and 100, which I'd learned, basically. And I never knew how to do 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 99. And all I did was 12-step meetings, therapy, and worked with Tom in this acting class. And he really taught me how to go through all the arrays of emotions, but still stay as you are.
Was that an impromptu acting class? Like you just go with it and start talking, and then people just add in.
So no, Meisner technique comes from Russia,
okay,
and it's really quite incredible. But it teaches you to be present in the moment under full circumstances. So if you're in a studio with microphones, you can be present in that moment and not see anything around you. And the practice they do initially is holding hands, whether you're a man or woman or whatever, and you look in someone's eyes and you repeat. So I'd say to you, you've got a blue shirt on. And you'd say, I have a blue shirt on.
Oh, fuck it, I've got to do this. Come on. Let's do this. Come on.
So you have a blue shirt on.
And I'm supposed to say, yes, I do? Or
No, you say, I have a blue shirt on.
I have a blue shirt on. Hold on, let me just move this microphone. This is getting... I have a blue shirt on.
You have a blue shirt on.
I have a blue shirt on.
You have a blue shirt.
I just keep repeating it.
Yeah.
I have a blue shirt on.
You have a blue shirt.
I have a blue shirt.
You have a blue shirt.
I have a blue shirt.
You have a blue shirt.
I have a blue shirt on.
You look frustrated.
Do I?
No, so you say I look frustrated.
I look frustrated.
You look frustrated.
I look frustrated.
You look frustrated.
I look frustrated.
You look frustrated.
I look frustrated.
And now you can say to me, you're smiling.
You're smiling.
Yeah. So you could do this for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And what happens is you go through, you can see you're challenging me, and you say, I'm challenging you, you're challenging me. And you go through anger or love in that moment.
It's a hierarchy of emotions.
Yeah. So you can also, like, people cry. But the point being is that you're safe and you're going through emotions with another human being, being present.
Yes.
So therefore, you really learn to be aware and you do that for months.
That's very powerful.
It's
I'm
amazing.
stealing that, by the way, for my patients.
You should take it.
It's
'cause
very
it
good.
really works.
Yeah,
I
I
work
can
with
see
people
that.
and do that.
I can see that.
Yeah, and
I can see that. Because people who don't know how to deal with their emotions are practicing and pretending or acting to get into those emotions, which becomes reality.
exactly. So what this allows you to do as well is when I did it with one guy and I held his hands and he felt like my granddad and it melted me into pieces. My other granddad, who was amazing, and I did it with like a big fella like yourself. And at that moment, we saw love as two human beings.
Yeah. No, I can see it.
And it was
I
incredible.
actually see how I could work that into a psychological strategy. I can actually see how I can do that. So that those people who have frustration or anger or upset or those emotional triggers that people have that they go and use, like
Yeah.
I've had a bad day, I've had a good day, actually because they don't know how to switch their emotions. So actually I can figure
Yeah.
a way out to doing that.
Exactly, because what happens is subconsciously you can just ping off of something. So what this does, it just rides through it and trains you to ride through that emotion. And then you go, oh, I'm all right, actually.
Yeah,
That's
it's
okay.
clever.
Yeah, it's very good.
Very clever. Who did you turn to for help? Was this that friend or was it other people?
No, so it was your friend initially. And then I realised that if you want help, you need to express yourself and be honest. So you need to be in the company of someone who's either done some work on themselves
Yeah.
or they're a professional.
Yeah.
Because a lot of friends will be like, oh, don't be silly. Oh, just have a drink, you're okay. You haven't got a problem. And what they do is they allow you to stay in there without knowing because they can't take the truth
That's
about
very
things.
true. There's a great analogy, about crabs. The way they catch crabs is they use these little pots and they put some bait in, and the crab climbs into the pot. But once it's in, the pot is designed in such a way that the crab can't get back out again. And that's like friends when you stop drinking or stop using.
Yeah.
They're like the crabs. They're trying to pull you back. But you don't want to go back.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
And there you got to be strong because, as human beings, we want community, we want intimacy, we want friends. And some of my friends I know have been telling themselves a story for a long time. Oh, I'm the rock star, I'm Party Peter, whatever my name is. And when you pin them down and say, do you want to stop? And they'll go, well, I can't. Who are people going to think I am? And you got to say, well, who cares?
Yeah.
But you have to get to that point yourself.
Yeah. You've been sober for how long now?
August 1st will be 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
I love that. What do you think you lost over the years because of your addiction?
During the addiction?
Yeah, during that.
Yeah. A lot of money. I lost a lot of money.
Put a figure on that.
Yeah, I did actually do the maths.
Did you?
Yeah. So how you do the maths is not a straight spend. So I know I spent £250,000 on drink, right?
Yep.
Over a long period of time because it was posh bars and I could, my accountant even would phone me up and say, what's going on? So I know I did that. But it's missing out on business deals from not turning up, not being there and saying the right thing, or trying to people please someone. Because I think when you're in addiction, you either people please someone or you're arrogant at one moment, but you're not yourself and you're not reading it properly. So there's always, I did a few property deals where all of a sudden I thought the guy wasn't telling me the truth. I was probably paranoid, and I just pulled the deal. So I'd probably say in all probably about £4 million.
Wow.
Yeah, which is painful.
Yeah, I mean, I hear this a lot because I've interviewed lots of people who are very successful,
Yeah.
and I hear this a lot because, listen, even the person that has a normal job, right, loses a lot of money, not just necessarily in what they're paying for it, but in the lost opportunities. I mean, that's
It's
a
lost
huge thing.
opportunities, and also it was especially towards the end. I think where I felt so low inside, it's weird. It's like a separation of feeling low self-worth, and then the ego tries to perform as much as it can to drag you up, and there's a massive separation and avoiding that. So I'd just be in a restaurant and with 10 of us will eat, it's $3,000 or whatever it is, and I'll get it, shit, don't worry. And a lot of that stuff towards the end was absolutely, well, it's cringy. And at the time you think you're a bit of a legend, but actually it's quite sad.
Did you have to break some of your circles, some of your tribes, some of the people you hung about with?
Oh, completely, yeah, absolutely. It's paramount. It's you have to give up. Someone said to me, "You've got to give up a few things, Paul." And I was like, "What's that?" He went, "Everything." Change all your friends. I have got some good friends from the past. what's really interesting is people drop away from you.
Yes.
It's not you drop away from them. So I didn't go out for a long time because I was very nervous about it. But when I did go out and I didn't want to drink, you're on a completely different level with people. And actually, they pull away from you because you're shining what they're doing. So it's not you, it's them.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so they fall away naturally. And it's quite heartbreaking sometimes because you've had a friend for years maybe and you've partied with them, but actually they're a fair weather friend, you know, and you've had that intimacy through drugs or drinking or having a smoke and having a deep conversation and you think that's it.
Yeah.
But it's not.
I always say this, if you take all the friends you've used with, whether you've used cocaine or whether you've used alcohol, what do you do with those friends other than using? Do you go to the cinema? Do you go out to meals? Do you spend time with them? And if you do that more than you spend time using them, then they're probably a good friend.
Yeah.
But a lot of people find that they only see these people every time they meet up for a drink. They only see these people every time they meet up to use. And they don't see them any other time. How is that a clear friend?
Well, exactly. But most people aren't aware. And if you're going out 3 nights a week with mates and you've got a good team with you, you're going to restaurants and clubs and stuff, but it's part of that. Some of the guys that in the last, I think, a few years, there was a group of 8 of us who used to go out all the time, and they were all successful men in different property, other things. 2 of them I'm really close to because 2 of them came in after me and said, "I think I might be in trouble. Can you help me?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course," because I've never been. I'm not like one of these people who's finished smoking and start coughing and telling you shouldn't smoke.
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone should do what they've got to do. Everyone has their own
Don't
journey.
do that. Don't use that.
Exactly,
Don't
yeah.
do that. God, get away from me.
I'm really open about it because I can't be a hypocrite. So a lot of people come to me now and say stuff. But there was a few friends that, they're few of them are dead now. But if I want a deeper relationship in life with friends, family, myself, and if you're not after that, then there's not much there, is there?
Strange question. What do you think you gained from having in the past had an addiction and coming through it?
That's a really good question. Insight. I have the blueprint of myself on my mind. I know I've gained strength. I've gained the things I wanted to have as a kid. Knowledge, strength, discipline, freedom. So I now know that from doing work on myself, I now know how obsessive my brain was and how busy it was all the time, and using to shut that off and knowing that that's just doing what it's doing. I don't have to be a part of that. And I'd say weirdly gratitude that I've been through the ringer. When I came into the Priory, where I went to in North London, they said you probably had 2 months to live. And knowing that, I choose how I live today,
And what's your notable achievement since getting clean and sober? What's the things you're most proud of?
Getting married, having kids, being a good dad, which I wouldn't be able to say before. Saying no is a massive one for me. I used to work at the drop of a hat when everyone was like, "You got to work, you've got to do this," and I used to just burn myself out. So I'm not as rich as I want to be, but I'm happier than I have been ever. So the biggest achievement for me is knowing myself and allowing me to, walk around in this planet as I can.
Right. What inspired you to... let's start again. What inspired you and your wife, let me just see if I pronounce this correctly, Dr. Frederica Amati.
Beautiful.
Did I say that
Well
right?
done, yeah.
Dr. Frederica Amati to set up the Stride Foundation. Tell us about the Stride Foundation.
Yeah, so we set it up about 10 years ago. We were sitting in our place, newly together, and she said, "You spend 2 to 3 hours a day on the phone to men. Why don't you make this some sort of business or a charity?" And what that meant was, from leaving rehab, I've just worked with a lot of people and met a lot of people, and I'm always there to help. And I studied mindset coaching. I studied lots of other things, and studied martial art and sobriety. And I have this sort of urge to help people, because I know what it's like not to be helped. So we decided to set it up. Also because at the time I had insurance, which allowed me to go into a treatment centre, a lot of people don't have the
Very
money.
true.
And
A lot of insurances aren't covered in treatment centres.
no, they're not. They do for anxiety disorders and other things, but they're not. I think there's a change going on right now. And that's usually because the success rate isn't great. And the success rate isn't great because a lot of people go in there for a holiday.
Yes.
And they want a little plaster put on.
That's true.
But for the ones who really want it, it works. But if you don't, it doesn't, like most things.
And also, I think the other thing is, listen, I think there's some great rehabs in the country, but like anything in the world, I also think there's some ones that are lacking in resources and lacking in what they offer to the prospective client. And I think, therefore, the end result is even lower.
I agree. But on the other side of that is that there's some big companies that have taken over some groups and are pressing upon them to do trauma therapy within 2 weeks because it's $6,000 or $7,000 and do this. And that's too much.
Exactly
You
right.
need to work on yourself paced over a period of time because it's like, you know, if you have a glass of water, you can't put 2 gallons in a gallon cup, can you?
Yeah.
Same thing, in my view. So we decided that we'd set up this little charity. So we did a really cool day, got some celebrities. We did a race day. We did it with Amy Winehouse Foundation. And then we started just through my network to someone would say, I need therapy. I haven't really got the money. And we'd say, okay, yeah, no worries, we'll put you in. And then a few people went into treatment. And it just started like that, really. And then my wife got pregnant. And so it just sort of pottered along. And then we decided that treatment's expensive as well. We've partnered with Steps Together recently, which is great. So we've got a great deal with these guys. And why I went with Steps Together is because I know the guy who owns it. He's in recovery and he really believes in helping people properly. And we put a few people in there, it's really good results. And what we do after, we cloak them with guys in their area or girls in their area, and they'll take them to meetings or we get them therapy after. So we're more about working on one person at a time and really doing our best to get them what we can do. And we've been pretty successful.
It's a great cause.
Yeah, and then what we're doing now is we're doing the school talk program because we had a policeman come into our school, opened the briefcase and said, if you take this, you'll die. If you take this, you'll go psychotic. And if you take this, you'll die. And that was it. So we do really good talks to explain on what peer pressure is. And did you have the same policeman?
I think I actually did. It's been very interesting to talk to you, Paul. And there's a question I ask every single one of my guests, the exact same question. Somebody listening to this right now, today, who's struggling with addiction, what advice would you give to them?
Ask for help. And what that means is, if you've got, it depends on the relationships with your friends, but ask for help, go online, look for something that will work for you, like someone like yourself, or if they want to go to a rehab. If they have no resources, you can go to a 12-step program. They're all online, like an AAC or something like that. The reason being that you'll go there with people that have been through it. If it's for you or it's not for you, at least you'll get an idea of what it's about and what you can go to do from there.
I agree. I think there are, not everything is right for every single person, but you'll find something that is right for you if you look sufficiently.
100%.
Paul, thank you very much for coming clean with me.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Elliot.
your time.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.